Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, wrapping up another OTA that John was present at yesterday, and we are officially 92 days away from the home opener. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, brother?
Very well. Yeah. 3 months away, basically. June 4th, September 4th. Yeah, creeping up on us. Creeping up.
No doubt about it, John. You guys were down at OTAs yesterday, the second open OTA of the offseason here for you guys to get out. Vic Fangio Day, as we talked about on the show yesterday. Boy, does he always give us some stuff to talk about, Vic Fangio, and then plenty of on-field stuff as well. John, where do you want to start? You want to start with Vic, or you want to go on-field? Because Vic is there's a lot there.
Vic is a treasure, man. Vic is awesome. Vic is
Let's start it with Vic.
I can't say enough good things about Vic Fangio. He doesn't bullshit. He doesn't. I don't know why other coaches can't take that same approach, but 99.9% don't. And it is a breath of fresh air when you get to talk to Vic Fangio.
No doubt. He made comments on Bryce Huff, on CJ Gardner Johnson, talked about Jordan Davis. I thought there was some interesting stuff there. Talked about Jahad Campbell, talked about the fake news quote, and all sorts of other good stuff from Vic Fangio. So, John, just started off there with Bryce Huff and CJ Gardner Johnson. Really, Bryce Huff, though, is obviously the more pressing matter because of recency. But just your thoughts on what he said about those two guys, and if you want to clarify or give any quotes from Vic, or whatever, however you want to do it. But
with Bryce, and it started off with Bryce, and my buddy Ed Kratz started it off. So yeah, I'm glad he said it, because for whatever reason, people didn't talk about it. And I've mentioned it on this show numerous times. Now you know where I got it. So I'm glad that Vic said it on the record, talking about his wrist injury. He had to have surgery. Basically, as Vic said, rendered his hand essentially useless and his arm useless because he can't use his hand. So I think that is true, and I think that was a bigger part of the problem than people understood or realized. And he probably should have the Eagles probably should have shut him down, and they wouldn't have had that angst of him not performing well. Now, he wasn't performing well before that either. So it's not, and when I say that, he had one bad game, and that got sort of put under the microscope. And that's what happens when you're a big time free agent pickup. But he was getting progressively better, and then the injury happened. And Vic said, hey, and Nolan got more snaps, and Jalen got more snaps, and he said things evolve, and those guys became bigger parts of the picture, and they're younger and they're more cost effective. And he said he thinks he'll do fine in San Francisco. I kind of agree with him.
Yeah.
And for those who think Vic is playing the political game, he doesn't do that.
No, he doesn't. You can tell by the way, if you listen to him, you can tell by the way he responds. Yeah. He doesn't do that.
So he's not lying to you. That's exactly what happened. And again, I don't think he got into the scheme because he's not a fit for Vic's scheme necessarily. I agree with that part of it. But if you're like, I mean, Vic's the kind of guy later, and when he was talking about Jordan Davis, and he said he got into the best shape of his career late in the season, Vic said, the follow-up was basically, why did it take so long? And Vic admitted, I'm dodging that question. Like he tells, if he doesn't want to say something, he'll tell you he wasn't in good enough shape.
What was your takeaway from that? Because I saw two routes. Jordan Davis is a lazy shit, and Vic didn't want to comment on that publicly, or Vic has a problem with the entire offseason program across the NFL board that he's commented on before.
I wouldn't.
Maybe it was about that.
I wouldn't say lazy shit, but he didn't do what he needed to do to get it.
He's a professional athlete. Why, if he shows up not in shape? I mean, what? Well,
I mean, you're
lazy
talking about
shit's not the right word, but something along those lines.
There's a difference between cornerbacks and wide receivers and 6'6", 350-pound defensive tackles. I mean, guys like Michael Pierce, who just retired, in Baltimore and these massive, yeah, I mean, part of their job is to be a little bit overweight, to be honest. And the trick is to find somebody who could play at that size and still show some athleticism. And Jordan certainly does that, but it's a fine line. And when he said he got in his best shape, and we talked to Jordan after that, and he said, maybe Peloton is the key to it all, because he picked up Peloton later in the season.
I'll tell you what, John, I hate running, and I've been trying to do more cardio. I was on Peloton's website last night after listening to Jordan Davis.
Yeah, those things are expensive, so get ready.
A little out of my price range there, John.
But he got into that, but I just bring that up because it shows you, in contrast to the people who say, well, he's just trying to, not throw Bryce Huff under the bus. He doesn't play politics, man. He tells the truth. And I know that's strange to say because no other coach does it that I know of, but that's big and it's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, his comment on CJ Gardner Johnson, John, real quick, was funny as well. I mean, it's a cap thing.
Well, it's another example. Yeah, I had no problem with it. Yeah, now there are things you can read in between the lines, and that's one of them.
Yeah,
he didn't want to deal with the high maintenance aspect of CJ Gardner Johnson, which is, I can see
Juice
both
not worth
sides
the
of it.
squeeze, John. Juice is not worth the squeeze.
Exactly, from that standpoint. And then on, his talking about Cooper, he dropped that he might play safety. Here's the bottom line with Cooper DeJean. They think he can do everything.
Do you think, because I said this on the afternoon show yesterday, I think he could play all 5 spots in the secondary easily.
Oh, yeah. And that's the whole point. So what he's trying to say is, well, if Sidney or Makuba don't work out, he might play safety. If Ringo and Jackson don't work, he might play outside corner. And obviously we know he can play slot corner from last year. They think he can do anything.
Right. And they're going to get him where they think he's the most valuable to the defense.
Well, they're going to get him to they're trying to put the best 5 defensive backs on the field.
Right.
And he's the movable part. Like, he can go anywhere. If Makuba's better than, a corner, or a corner's better than the safeties, he can move them around. And that just tells you what they think about Cooper DeJean as a football player. Because and then probably the biggest part of all, because Nick Sirianni's a great coach, but you can't get any information on any injury at any point. And Big's like, bang, Jahad Campbell, sometime in August. Jacoby Dean.
Camp starts in July, so it would tell you it might not be there for the start of camp.
Yeah, he's not going to be there. That's what it tells you. Now, there's a big difference. There's still some uncertainty between August 1st and August 20th, say. So,
right.
Which obviously earlier in August, the better. But, he boils it down for you. You're not going to see him till August. Jacoby, you're not going to see him for a while. That means into the season. In early, it's, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and he was on the podium, got the podium treatment because he might be starting linebacker week 1. The job is there to take, at least in the short term.
Yep, and Vic also talked about Jahad Campbell. Basically said he was going to start at off-ball line in that linebacker room because it's a tougher position to play. What'd you make of that?
Yeah, then he got pressed, and that's where he started. And we know he follows Bobby King around in practice, who's the inside linebackers coach. So it makes sense from a foundational perspective because it's much easier to go out and just rush the passer than to play off-ball linebacker and have to read and diagnose and all that kind of thing. So the foundation is that. And when he got pressed on the pass rush upside, he said potentially, and then it was the one word answer, and then it was, what would it take to realize that? Getting him out there. I mean, he's not, until he sees him in August, it's hard to envision what it's going to look like. And there's other avenues as well. Like how comfortable is he with Trotter by that point? You know, the easiest way to get him on the field probably early, especially after missing so much time, is the antithesis of the foundation of off-ball linebacker. The easiest place to get him on the field is go out there and rush the passer. That's it's more difficult to be a well-rounded, in his case, it would be weak side linebacker, which is what he said about being more complicated and there's more to learn from that aspect of it. So I think he's still going to be a hybrid player. Question is, how quickly can you get there, because he's not going to be available until August.
Yep, no doubt about it. Johnny Mac, let's go to the on-the-field stuff. Good comments from Victor. I'm sure we'll talk about it some more. We have two great guests coming up. We got Mike Gill, and we'll have Brandon Lee Gout in hour number 2. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here this morning on Birds 365. Hit that like button for us. Drop your comments in the chat, and all super chats will be read today as well. Appreciate your guys' support. Johnny Mac, going on the field. No Devontae Smith again. A couple of other guys missed. Nothing too crazy or alarming there. A.J. Brown back out there, which is pretty awesome to see all this voluntary work, and you have some of the best players in the world showing up every single time. Lane Johnson was back out on the football field. Start there, John. Just any injury update and who missed the OTA. Not that it matters all that much. I don't think there's anybody to be overly concerned about when you miss an OTA, but still worth noting.
No, yeah. I mean, Devontae's, some people will take it in a negative direction, but he's one of the hardest workers on the team. There's no concern that he's not going to be in shape or anything like that. And it's already out there. He's been working out in Tampa with Ryan Williams, the great young Alabama receiver. So he's doing his work. He's just not doing it in Philadelphia. And there's some family things. And once you reach a certain status, like you say, AJ lives in the area now, and big family guy's not going anywhere. So you might as well go work out at the NovaCare complex.
Yeah, right.
Lane goes back and forth, and offensive line masterminds, which is his sort of off-season thing. They're getting ready for their thing after many camps down in Texas. So, guys, Fletcher Cox used to do that. He had a big ranch. He has a big ranch. They'd go home and then they come back. And if they're in their area, they show up. Yeah. And if not, they don't. They pop their head in, as Fletcher used to say.
Smitty might live back in Louisiana again, or wherever he might live. I'm not sure. He might not live in the area.
Well, he's in Tampa. A lot of guys live in Florida. I don't know where he lives in the off season.
He might live in Florida because of tax. I mean, I think
exactly.
You save a lot on tax. A lot of there for 6 months. Yeah,
a lot of guys live in Florida or Texas because of tax purpose. When you make a lot of money, they take a lot of money. So
and there's actually some accounting hacks you can do there. If you have like 3 houses, I think you only have to be in Florida for 4 months to get full residency. So maybe he bought a little condo in Louisiana, a little condo in Philly, and a banger in Florida, and he saves like millions of dollars a year on taxes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that go into it. But when you reach a certain status, and he's reached that status, I wouldn't worry about Devontae Smith at all. From the actual, a lot of positives. I mean, Landon Dickerson's already out there. That amazed me. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even looking for Landon at first, because you go to practice and the first thing you do is look for players who weren't there last time, and Landon wasn't there last time, and he's coming off season knee surgery, and I'm like, man, I don't even expect to see him. Now he might be on the sidelines. Because he lives in the area now. So, but he's out there with the first team offensive line. He's one of the toughest guys in the world, man. He's out there in June, and he doesn't have to be. So that's a big positive. Nolan Smith said he's getting closer to being cleared. Said he's ready, almost ready to strike, he called it, which to me means probably clear for contact. But and he said by next week. Now, they have the mandatory minicamp, but think about it, they're going to go from June 10th to they're probably going to start training camp July 21st, I'm
Right,
guessing.
late July.
Like, why would you go out there for one day? I think
That's the one thing I love about Nolan Smith, John. He really just seems like he loves life. He loves the game.
I
He loves the
agree with that.
He loves it, man.
But sometimes you got to hold the player back. Like I'm saying from the Eagles' perspective, not Nolan's perspective, but from the Eagles' perspective, like I'm not clearing them for one day.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Risk versus reward. I don't know if the reward is there.
But, if they do, they do. They did it last year with Anais Smith, now much lower profile, but he was coming off a surgery that impacted his draft status. And he was not able to go for the majority of the spring, and he went to mini camp and he was a go. So they've done it in the past. And there's the avenue of, well, if he's cleared, he's cleared. So it's possible. But I'm saying, me personally, and I'm not a doctor, I would be very cautious with Nolan Smith because I need Nolan Smith.
Yeah, and whenever a player talks about their own injury, you sometimes you have to play a little doctor because you don't know exactly what exactly the truth is there. John, any other takeaways from on the field? Did you have a chance to see the depth chart, John? And if you did anything jump out at you?
No, it was pretty similar. Dory Jackson, Kaylee Ringo keep rotating opposite Quinyon Mitchell. Offensive line was more structured because most of the starters, the only starter, Cam Jurgens, he was there, but he's still rehabbing from back surgery. So was Mailata, Dickerson, Brett Toth, Tyler Steen, Lane Johnson, because Lane was back. So 4 of the 5, if you project Tyler Steen. So that was last week. There were 3 missing, so it was a big difference. They did blip, but again, Vic said don't take too much into the rotations at this point. They did start on the edge with Jalix Hunt and Patrick Johnson. Last week it was Jalix Hunt and Azeez Ojulari, but Big saying don't take much out of it. They rotate those guys a lot. And without Nolan, who's not working in team drills, he does some individual stuff. I talked about it last week. It looks very, very ominous on the edge without Nolan Smith. Jalix Hunt, Patrick Johnson, Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche. Those were the first 2 teams, the first 2 groupings. So that's a little bit of a concern. But once Nolan comes back, he did talk a lot about Jalix Hunt. So that to me is a positive. So maybe he's ready and Vic's fine to take the big leap. And maybe that's what they're counting on.
Boy, if he takes a big leap, that would be an impressive draft pick last year, John. When he got selected, many people were like, "Who the heck? Why the heck? Why a project in the 3rd round?" Yeah. I mean, got going a little bit late in the year. It's. I will say this, to your point, it still is a big projection. All right, to have Jalix Hunt being a huge contributor, I believe in it, but I do understand what belief in that comes with, and that's a lot of hope.
Sometimes opportunity is everything, because you talk yourself into, all right, this guy's a developmental project. We can't play this guy right away. And then you're forced to play him. And he's like, oh, he's a little bit better than we thought right away, just because he's got natural ability. And he probably is, learning on the job. Everybody looks at Davion Taylor as this bust, as a 3rd-round pick who was a developmental. Well, they never gave him a chance. And when they did give him a chance, he actually played pretty well for 2 games and then got hurt. Sometimes it's opportunity and just giving these guys a chance. And you got to suffer through some of the startup costs, like Jim Schwartz would say. they're going to make some mistakes, but if you're really gifted, and Jalen Hunt is really gifted, you kind of figure it out on the fly because you're a better athlete. So, I'm getting more optimistic about Jalen Hunt because they're going to give him the opportunity. And if they're willing to live with some of some of the learning curve, why not? Why not Jalen Hunt? I'd rather have Jalen Hunt than pay 30+ million to a 30+-year-old edge rusher.
Yeah, I know. And the 30+-year-old guy might make you better in weeks 1 through 6, but where are you better, John, in January? That's my question. If you let Jalen Hunt go through the learning process of the year, similar to how it happened a year ago, similar to how it's happened many times for players, I think you have a bigger upside if Jalen Hunt comes through. Now, it's a big if, but
I'm not going to say
I don't
bigger
know.
upside than TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson.
TJ Watt. No, I didn't mean that. I meant Zadarius Smith, somebody like that. Yeah.
But even as Zadarius Smith, I mean, he was a big time pass rusher for a long time in the NFL. If Jalen Hunt turns into Zadarius Smith, that's a win. Yeah. But yeah, at this stage, I'd much rather have Jalen Hunt. And I think Bick is enamored with him. So I think that's half the battle. As we saw with Bryce Huff, if he's not enamored with you, that's half the battle. And then safety as well. That's going to be a rotation. And, he mentioned that's probably not going to be until he's not going to make the decision there until a couple preseason games. And that's Drew Makuba, Sidney Brown. He also threw in Tristan McMullen. So
McMullen did play last year when Gardner Johnson wasn't in there. So whether it was the injury to Sidney or not, McMullen did get time last year.
Yeah, he did. And yeah, he mentioned a few preseason games to sort out, and he specifically added Tristan because the question was about Cooper and Brown and their competition, and he specifically added McMullen. So that people should take notice, and even Lewis Seen is still getting a few first team reps. So they seem to be pretty open-minded on the competition there.
There you go. Good stuff there. Got to give a shout to Big Sills. He's been telling me about Tristan McMullen. I'm like, Tristan McCollum's not going to be out there. Vic Fangio throws him in. 2 super chats to get to. And then we got Mike Gill coming up here on Birds 365. We'll have Brandon Lee Goutland later on in the show. Second OTA wrapped up yesterday, and 6 of 6 will be tomorrow, but no media availability. So we will not have any update other than what the state media puts out. Jason Gates says $5. Good morning, guys. Do you think Dotson is going to be wide receiver 3? I saw something about us being projected to get Tyler Boyd. Just curious what you think. Go Birds. John, that sounds like a Bleacher Report.
I think it was Pro Football Network. I've seen that. Throw it in the circular file, Jason. No, not happening. Jahan Dotson is the wide receiver 3. And the only reason that could potentially change, I've mentioned, the Eagles aren't going to be able to keep him long term. This is going to be his last year in Philadelphia.
Right.
So could they trade him down the road? Sure, but that would be most likely if somebody like Terrace Marshall stepped up and proved he can handle.
Yeah, or somebody offered a good deal for John.
I always love the trade stories, and like the Eagles need a receiver. What? The Eagles need a receiver.
Well, we have talked about here on the show the depth problem after those 2 guys. Now, I think it's better with Dotson, but it still does exist, right?
I think it's the best of the Nick Sirianni era. The question is, Danny Gray, people don't even know who he is. He's a legit NFL receiver. It'll be, to me, my concerns about the Eagles is how they build the roster. Like Johnny Wilson's here. Johnny Wilson missed OTAs. That's a little bit of a concern. I should have mentioned him. He's missed both days, which is weird.
Yeah, right.
But obviously he can block, but he can't do much as a receiver. Anaya Smith didn't have a good rookie season, part injury related. We'll see if he can rebound. And they kept him around because he was a draft pick. And So I didn't necessarily like the way they built it. Like Danny's a much better receiver than those guys. But sometimes you want other things. You want special teams ability. You want blocking ability for a run first offense like Johnny Wilson can provide. So it depends on what you want. But I think with Jahan Dotson, Danny Gray, they're better than they have been in the Nick Sirianni era when it comes to guys who can actually catch the football and somewhat. You can't replace A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
No. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
But
you
they're
can improve
somewhat
the depth. You can improve the
they're
depth.
somewhat better equipped with those guys.
I agree. Last super chat here, then we'll get to Mike Gill. Kimberly Sirico. Kimberly, thank you for your support. She says, stay humble and hungry, a saying at Georgia. Enjoy the journey. Be where your feet are. Don't take anything for granted. Don't look forward. Don't look back. Nolan Smith. There you go. It's a good quote right there. It's a good quote.
Yeah, Nolan's, you can tell, he's got that positive athlete mentality. He is very hyper-focused on the process, getting better.
Right.
And that's the way he's taught. The Eagles have a lot of respect, obviously, for the way Kirby Smart runs that program. So
him too, and I'll also give a nod to Jalen Hurts, who talks about the process day in and day out all year long, 3 to 4 years now. He's been doing it even when they win, when they lose, when they suck, when they're great. Yeah, that's what Jalen wants to talk about. So I think that maybe some of that is permeated as well, which is a very positive thing. So good stuff there. Great opening breakdown here on the OTA. Johnny Mac was down there yesterday. I said it at the open, everybody. 92 days away from the banner drop for Eagles versus Cowboys on that opener, September 4th. So it's June 4th. But basically exactly 3 months. You got 92 days until the Eagles kick off the 2025 NFL season. It can't come soon enough. Let's get to Mike Gill right now, joining us on Birds 365. You can follow him everywhere at Mike Gill Show, including subscribing to his YouTube channel at